The message came on an ordinary Tuesday. Captain Maya Rodriguez was midway through her morning coffee when every screen in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters flickered simultaneously. The orbital defense grid had detected an incoming vessel, one that matched no known configuration, and was decelerating at speeds that defied human engineering capabilities. "Status report," she demanded, setting down her mug as the command center erupted into controlled chaos. "Unknown craft has bypassed all outer warning buoys without triggering alerts," Lieutenant Puddle reported, dark eyes fixed on her console. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's directed at everyone, Captain." Before Maya could respond, the main view screen shifted to display an alien being unlike any humanity had encountered in their limited stellar explorations. 6 limbs arranged in elegant symmetry supported a body covered in chitinous plates that shifted colors like liquid mercury. Compound eyes caught the light in faceted patches of emerald and amber, while mandibles clicked in what might have been anticipation or amusement. "People of Earth," the translator rendered in a voice that seemed too melodic for the creature's physiology. "I am Ambassador Krellfax of the Zerioth Imperium. Your world has been observed and deemed worthy of protectorate status, an honor not bestowed upon any civilization in 3 centuries. Maya watched as the being's exoskeleton rippled with iridescent blues and purples, but her attention caught on something else, a momentary flash of crimson that pulsed through the ambassador's thorax when he mentioned protectorate status. In her 15 years of diplomatic and military service, she'd learned to trust her instincts about tells. That crimson flash wasn't pride or ceremony. It was hunger. As the transmission continued outlining the generous terms of Earth's new relationship with the galactic community, Maya glanced around the command center. Her colleagues' faces showed awe, relief, excitement. Humanity wasn't alone, and a powerful ally was offering protection and technology. Only she felt that cold knot of suspicion in her gut. 6 hours later, she was summoned to the office of Admiral Chen. "Captain Rodriguez," the Admiral said without preamble, "you're being reassigned. Effective immediately." Maya stiffened. "Sir, you're to lead Earth's delegation to the Galactic Council. The Zerioth have granted us 3 representatives. You've been selected as head of the mission. With respect, Admiral, I have no diplomatic training beyond standard officer protocols. There are hundreds of actual diplomats better qualified. This wasn't my decision." The Admiral turned his tablet toward her. On it was an image from the global broadcast, zoomed in on the command center. Dozens of faces, all staring up at the alien ambassador with expressions ranging from wonder to reverence. All except one, Maya's face, caught in a moment of narrow-eyed calculation. The Security Council analyzed reaction patterns across all military and government installations during first contact. Admiral Chen explained, "You were the only senior officer whose immediate response registered as suspicion rather than acceptance. The Council believes that perspective might be valuable." 2 days later, Maya found herself selecting her team from personnel files. The Council had expected her to choose high-ranking diplomats and scientists. Instead, she picked Dr. Elijah Okafor, a xenoanthropologist whose controversial theories about convergent social evolution had nearly ended his career, Lieutenant Wei Chen, a combat specialist whose file contained several redacted incidents involving improvised weaponry, and Farah Nazari, a junior engineer whose application to the space program had initially been rejected due to her unorthodox approach to established physical principles. As they prepared to board the Zerioth shuttle, Ambassador Krellfax observed the human delegation with mandibles twitching in what his species considered laughter. "Such a small group," he commented, compound eyes shifting through rainbow hues. "Most new protectorates send their highest leaders and most decorated scientists. Humans have different customs regarding who we send into unknown situations," Maya replied with a deliberately opaque smile. As they boarded, Dr. Okafor discreetly activated the quantum communications array hidden within his medical equipment, a direct violation of the first rule of their protectorate agreement. all communication with Earth must be monitored by Zirioth intermediaries. The ship's doors sealed with a hiss of alien atmosphere, and Maya felt the momentary terror any explorer faces when stepping into the void. But hers was tempered with resolve. Whatever game the Zirioth were playing, humanity would not be easily taken. Zirioth Prime defied human understanding of architectural possibilities. Maya stood at the viewport as their shuttle approached the alien capital, her team clustered behind her in stunned silence. Massive anti-gravity platforms floated at precise elevations, creating a literal hierarchy visible from orbit. The highest platforms, bathed in perpetual sunlight above the cloud layer, glittered with crystalline structures that seemed to grow rather than be built. Below, descending through layers of atmosphere, each level became progressively darker, more industrial, more densely packed. The shining heights, Ambassador Krellthax announced with a ripple of gold across his exoskeleton. Home to the enlightened caste. You will be presented there first, before your permanent accommodations are prepared in the diplomatic sector. Their shuttle docked at a spire that seemed impossibly thin, its transparent walls revealing hundreds of Zirioth, moving with mathematical precision through interior chambers. Remember, Maya murmured to her team as the airlock cycled. Observe everything, question nothing, out loud. The reception hall sparkled with bioluminescent panels that responded to the movements of the high-caste Zirioth, creating halos of light around them, while leaving the servant castes in shadow. Maya noticed immediately how the various aliens in attendance arranged themselves, each species clustered in distinct hierarchical formations, with clear indicators of rank displayed through posture, positioning, and ornamentation. Captain Rodriguez of Earth announced a Zirioth herald, its voice producing harmonics that made Maya's teeth vibrate. And subordinates. Dr. Okafor winced at the designation, but maintained his diplomatic smile. They were introduced to a dizzying array of alien dignitaries. Maya noted how conversations flowed only in one direction. Questions came from higher castes. Answers from lower, never the reverse. When Lieutenant Chen directly addressed a query to a warrior caste Zirioth about their impressive exoskeletal armor, the entire chamber seemed to freeze momentarily. Your subordinate addresses a blade guardian without permission, Krellthax hissed, colors darkening to indigo. Most unusual. Earth military protocol encourages information gathering at all levels, Maya replied smoothly. Lieutenant Chen specializes in defensive systems assessment. The explanation seemed to mollify Krellthax, but Maya caught something unexpected. A subtle shift in the posture of the warrior, a momentary brightening of its compound eyes. Not offense, but interest. More diplomatic missteps followed. Farah complimented a servant on the engineering of the atmospheric regulators. Dr. Okafor engaged simultaneously with representatives of 3 different species without acknowledging their relative status. With each breach of protocol, Maya observed 2 distinct reactions. The upper castes grew increasingly rigid, while representatives of subjugated species showed subtle signs of fascination. Hours later, sequestered in their assigned quarters, a circular chamber with sleeping pods arranged in hierarchical elevation, Dr. Okafor activated a signal scrambler disguised as a meditation device. They're watching us, he confirmed, showing readings on his tablet. Audio and visual surveillance throughout. Expected, Maya replied. What did you learn at the reception? Earth is the 27th world granted protectorate status in the last millennium, Okafor said, his expression grim. I managed to access a restricted historical database through a terminal that wasn't properly secured against human interfaces. The previous 26 all followed the same pattern. Initial diplomatic exchange, followed by resource extraction trees, culminating in genetic modification programs. Genetic modification? Farah asked, paling. The Phloxians, those insectoid beings with the iridescent carapaces, 300 years ago, they were the previous recipients of protectorate status. They were originally 1/3 larger with significantly greater cognitive flexibility. Now they're engineered for specialized technical roles. their reproductive cycles controlled by chemical triggers administered by Zerioth overseers. A sudden scratching at the wall panel interrupted them. Maya motioned for silence as Y moved into defensive position. The panel slid open to reveal one of the Phloxians they'd seen at the reception, its antennae trembling with what might have been fear. Humans, it chittered in accented standard, compound eyes darting toward the corners of the room. I am Tic-Tac. You are in grave danger. We figured that much out. Maya replied cautiously. No, you misunderstand. The Phloxian's translucent wings fluttered in agitation. You were not granted protectorate status for your resources or labor. The Zerioth discovered something unique in human neurophysiology, proteins that can extend their lifespans indefinitely. They don't want your planet. They want your brains. Maya's response was cut short by a thunderous pounding on the chamber's main door. Protocol inspection, announced a harsh voice. Open immediately by order of Imperial Security. Tic-Tac's antennae flattened against its head in terror as Maya made a split-second decision, pointing to a maintenance hatch in the ceiling, their first test of trust in this dangerous new world. Clear, Maya whispered as the Zerioth inspection team finally departed. 3 tense hours had passed since they'd hidden Tic-Tac in a ventilation shaft, the Phloxian's exoskeleton folded into an impossibly compact configuration. Tic-Tac emerged, limbs unfolding with geometric precision. They suspect nothing yet, but time grows short. Tell us everything, Maya ordered, as Y maintained watch at the door. For centuries, a resistance has existed among the lower castes. Tic-Tac explained, antennae twitching nervously. But our efforts are inefficient. Each species was engineered for specialized thinking within rigid hierarchies. The Zerioth modified our ancestors to eliminate lateral cognition, the ability to connect concepts across domains. Humans excel at that, Farah noted. It's the foundation of our innovation. Precisely, and why the Zerioth see you as both resource and threat. Tic-Tac's compound eyes reflected the dim light. They discovered human neural proteins can repair synaptic degradation in their elders, but they fear the side effects. Test subjects began questioning hierarchical imperatives. The council debates whether to harvest your species or exterminate you entirely. Maya processed this information with cold efficiency. How large is your resistance? Thousands across dozens of species, but communication between cells is difficult. We cannot conceive methods of cooperation outside our design parameters. Wei broke his watchful silence. Captain, with respect, our priority should be warning Earth. These aliens are planning to harvest our people's brains. We need to prepare defenses. If we warn Earth now, the Zerioth will know we've discovered their plans, Dr. Okafor countered. Our advantage is their assumption of our ignorance. I believe we should explore alliance with the Resistance. Maya observed the growing tension between her team members, precisely the kind of disagreement that would scandalize the rigidly hierarchical Zerioth. Before she could respond, a melodic tone resonated through their quarters. The ceremony of placement summons. Tic-Tac translated, antennae flattening. You must go immediately. I will find secure passage back to my assigned sector. 30 minutes later, the human delegation entered a vast amphitheater carved from a single massive crystal. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds filled the tiered seating, arranged in precise order of galactic status. At the center, a raised dais held the Zerioth Archon, an ancient being whose exoskeleton had faded to translucent white, surrounded by a council of elders. Approach, humans of Earth. The Archon's voice resonated without apparent amplification. Today you shall be assigned your rightful place in the grand hierarchy of sentience. Ambassador Krell-Thax stepped forward. As sponsors of this new protectorate species, the Zerioth Imperium has prepared the traditional trials to determine appropriate placement. Maya noted the subtle emphasis on traditional. These trials were clearly a formality with a predetermined outcome. The representative of humanity shall face 3 challenges, the Archon announced. First, combat prowess against our champion. Second, technological innovation against established parameters. Finally, leadership capacity in crisis simulation. The crowd murmured as a colossal Zerioth warrior ascended to the platform, battle exoskeleton gleaming with weapons. Captain Maya Rodriguez will face these trials alone, as is proper, the Archon declared. Maya stepped forward, feeling thousands of alien eyes upon her. She had studied the briefing materials thoroughly during their journey, including ancient Zerioth legal codes provided by Earth's Shinorcheologists. With utmost respect, "Exalted Archon," she said clearly, "I invoke the right of champions under the Third Codex of Galactic Placement, Section 12 Gamma." The amphitheater erupted in shocked chittering and rumbling. The Archon's exoskeleton flushed deep purple, the first display of emotion from the ancient being. "That provision has not been invoked in 7,000 cycles," Krellfax protested, colors shifting rapidly through agitated patterns. "Yet it remains valid under your own legal tradition," Maya countered. "Established when the Zerioth themselves were a rising species, it allows delegation of specific challenges to specialized champions." The Archon's compound eyes fixed on Maya with new intensity. "The human invokes ancient law correctly. Your delegation may select champions for each trial." Maya turned to her team, already knowing who would face the combat challenge. Lieutenant Wei Chen stepped forward, hand resting on his sidearm, a confident smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "For the trial of combat prowess," Maya announced, turning back to the Archon, "humanity selects Engineer Farah Nazari as our champion." The collective gasp from her own team was drowned by the sound of thousands of alien voices expressing shock, confusion, and from some quarters, the first stirrings of genuine interest in the unpredictable humans. The combat arena resembled a geometric puzzle more than a battlefield. Floating platforms of varying sizes and heights shifted in complex patterns, while gravitational anomalies distorted the space between them. Thousands of alien spectators watched from surrounding observation decks, their expectations clear. They had come to witness a human's humiliation, or perhaps death. Farah Nazari stood at the entry point, wearing only the standard-issue environmental suit that all humans required in Zerioth atmosphere. Her opponent, a warrior-designated champion Vextral, towered 3 meters tall, encased in biomechanical battle armor bristling with serrated appendages. "Maya, are you certain?" Dr. Okafor whispered from their observation platform. "Wei is our combat specialist. Farah is." "Exactly what we need," Maya interrupted, eyes fixed on her chosen champion. "Trust me." The Archon's resonant voice filled the arena. "The trial of combat prowess commences. Victory is achieved by incapacitation or surrender." A tone sounded. Champion Vextral launched immediately into an attack, powerful limbs propelling his massive form across the arena in a precisely calculated arc. Farah did not attempt to fight. Instead, she ran, not in panic, but with purpose. Her eyes darted between platforms, her hands manipulating something small attached to her environmental suit's scanner. "The human flees," someone shouted from the audience. Clicks and whistles of derision echoed through the chamber. "She's not fleeing," Wei muttered, leaning forward. "She's analyzing." For 3 full minutes, Farah evaded the Zerioth champion, who became visibly frustrated as his attacks, each a masterpiece of calculated force and trajectory, met only empty air. The audience's mockery gradually shifted to confusion. "What game does your subordinate play?" Ambassador Krellfax demanded, his exoskeleton flushing orange with agitation. Maya smiled thinly. "Engineering." The moment came when Farah allowed herself to be cornered on a small platform near the arena center. Champion Vextral approached methodically, mandibles clicking in anticipation. The audience leaned forward expectantly. What happened next occurred so quickly that many observers missed it. Farah activated her modified scanner, sending a precisely calibrated signal to the arena's gravitational systems. The maintenance protocols she had identified during her evasion phase responded automatically. and the local gravity field inverted. The Zerioth champion, whose fighting style relied on precisely calculated jumps and strikes, suddenly found his own armor working against him. The biomechanical systems, designed to enhance natural strength, became deadweight as Farah manipulated the gravity fields. Vex Troll flailed, disoriented, as Farah nimbly navigated the altered gravity with human adaptability. Impossible. Krelv. Thax hissed. When Farah finally approached her opponent, it wasn't to attack, but to access the external control port on his armor, a maintenance interface that, to her engineer's eye, had been obvious from the start. A few quick adjustments, and the mighty warrior hung suspended in his own locked exoskeleton. "I believe this constitutes incapacitation," Farah called out. Her voice steadied, despite her racing heart. Silence gripped the arena before erupting into a cacophony of alien voices. The Archon raised its primary limbs for quiet. The human has achieved victory through unconventional means, the ancient being stated, compound eyes unreadable. The Zerioth Imperium acknowledges this outcome, though notes it as an anomaly rather than a demonstration of true combat prowess. As Farah returned to her team, Maya noted the reactions across the audience, the high-caste Zerioth displaying colors of dismissal and rationalization, but other species showing signs of greater interest. Most telling were the warrior-caste Zerioth, whose postures had shifted subtly toward what Maya recognized as attentiveness. That evening, as they discussed strategy in their quarters, the secure door slid open without warning. The team froze, expecting Imperial guards. Instead, 3 Zerioth warriors entered, their exoskeletons bearing the distinctive markings of elite units. "We risk execution by coming here," the leader stated without preamble, colors shifting to a subdued blue Maya hadn't observed before. "But we must understand." "Understand what?" Maya asked cautiously. "Why you chose your weakest member to fight. Why you trusted her judgment over your specialized warrior." The Zerioth's compound eyes fixed on Maya. "Our genetic programming ensures absolute loyalty to the hierarchy. We are designed to obey without question. Yet today, you demonstrated something different. Trust," Maya said simply. "Humans determine value through demonstrated ability, not designated rank." The warrior's exoskeleton rippled with a pattern Maya couldn't interpret. "This concept troubles our conditioning. Some among us have begun questioning our own status as genetic servants." As the warriors departed as quickly as they had come, Y moved closer to Maya. "They're developing individual thought. You knew this would happen." Maya nodded slowly. "Combat specialists recognize patterns. Engineers solve problems by changing the rules. Sometimes the strongest strategy isn't to fight with your strongest piece. It's to reveal the game itself is rigged." In the shadows outside their quarters, Ambassador Krell Thax received the disturbing report. Humans were proving more dangerous than anticipated. He transmitted an urgent message to the shadowy council of ancient Zerioth. Accelerate the harvesting program before the contamination of ideas could spread further. "They're changing the parameters again," Dr. Okafor muttered, studying the briefing materials for the second trial. The Technological Innovation Challenge was supposed to involve power distribution optimization. Now it's about weapons targeting systems. Maya nodded grimly. "They're adapting to counter our perceived strengths. After Farah's performance, they expect us to have engineering advantages." 3 days had passed since the combat trial. Their quarters had been upgraded to more luxurious accommodations, with even more sophisticated surveillance. Communications Officer Sana Patel, the quietest member of their delegation, had discovered listening devices embedded in nearly every surface. "We need to change our approach," Maya decided. "They expect us to compete within their framework. Instead, we'll collaborate outside it." Under the guise of diplomatic receptions, which the Zerioth permitted to showcase Earth's new allies, Maya's team began a subtle campaign of cross-species exchange. While appearing to network politically, they were actually building something unprecedented. a cooperative intelligence network that crossed biological and cultural boundaries. Farah shared engineering principles with Floxian technicians. We discussed adaptive tactical thinking with curious members of the warrior caste. Dr. Okafor exchanged cultural insights with representatives of a dozen subjugated species. Each conversation carefully avoided overt rebellion while planting seeds of collaborative possibility. In their surveilled quarters, they maintained a careful deception. Lieutenant Wei would be the logical choice for the weapons targeting challenge, Maya said loudly, while Sana's signal jammer created a small bubble of privacy around their actual conversation. Tic-Tac provided access codes to maintenance tunnels beneath the central repository. Wei whispered, "If we're going through with this infiltration, tonight is our best opportunity." The central repository, according to Resistance intelligence, contained the complete genetic and neural templates used to maintain control over all subject species. Maya had made the difficult decision to prioritize gathering this intelligence over warning Earth about the immediate threat. If they could understand how the Ziriath maintained control, perhaps they could disrupt it. That night, as the capital's 3 moons aligned in conjunction, Maya led a 2-person team through service corridors that hadn't been designed for human dimensions. Farah remained behind to prepare for the upcoming trial, while Dr. Okafor and Sana monitored communications from their quarters. Only Maya and Wei ventured into the restricted zone, guided by Tic-Tac's detailed instructions. "Security checkpoint ahead," Wei warned as they approached a pulsing barrier of energy. Tic-Tac's code should deactivate it temporarily. Maya entered the sequence into her modified scanner. The barrier flickered and dissolved. "Let's move. We have 3 minutes before the system resets." They penetrated deeper into the facility, passing through chambers filled with crystalline storage matrices. Maya's scanner translated fragments of data, genetic sequences, neural architectures, behavioral conditioning protocols. "This is worse than we thought," Wei muttered as they reached the central chamber. They'd been doing this for thousands of years. The chamber opened before them, revealing not the expected computer core, but something far more disturbing. A vast biological processor composed of living neural tissue suspended in preservation fluid. Thousands of brain segments from dozens of species, interconnected in a grotesque architecture of enforced cooperation. "It's alive," Maya whispered in horror. "They're using harvested minds to process data." An alarm suddenly blared through the facility. On her scanner, Maya saw security forces converging on their position from multiple directions. "Download what you can, and let's go," Wei urged, already moving toward their exit route. Maya stood frozen, staring at the imprisoned consciousnesses. What Tic-Tac had described as data storage was actually enslavement on the most fundamental level. According to her scanner, some of these neural patterns have been active for centuries. "Captain, we need to move. Now," Wei called from the doorway. Maya made a decision that would forever alter human-alien relations. Instead of following their extraction plan, she connected her scanner to the primary control interface and initiated the emergency dissolution protocol that Tic-Tac had included as a last resort. "What are you doing?" we demanded. "Freeing them," Maya answered as the preservation fluid began to drain. "Even if they die, it's better than eternal slavery. Go, take what data we have back to the others. I'll create a diversion. I'm not leaving you." "That's an order, Lieutenant. The mission comes first." As Wei reluctantly retreated, Maya continued the liberation process, knowing capture was inevitable. When Ziriath's security forces burst into the chamber, she stood calmly among the chaos of failing systems. The guards surrounded her, weapons ready. To her surprise, the lead guard gave a subtle gesture she recognized from her earlier encounter. One of the warriors questioning their conditioning. "You will be detained for examination," the guard announced loudly for any monitoring systems. Then, almost imperceptibly, "We will speak further, human." The detention cell was designed to induce despair. Walls that absorbed sound, lighting that shifted unpredictably to disrupt circadian rhythms, and atmospheric composition calibrated to maintain consciousness while inducing subtle anxiety. None of it affected Maya as she had expected. Instead of isolation, her guards engaged her in furtive conversation during shift changes. Questions about human society, tentative at first, then increasingly direct. How did humans resolve disagreements between specialists? How could a society function without genetically determined roles? The concept of individual choice seemed simultaneously terrifying and fascinating to them. On the third day, the cell door dissolved to reveal Ambassador Krelfax flanked by two Zirioth of the ancient ruling caste, beings whose translucent exoskeletons revealed atrophied internal organs, sustained by technology so advanced it appeared magical. Your actions constitute unprecedented violations of imperial law, Krelfax announced, colors shifting through patterns of formal condemnation. The central repository sustained significant damage. 11 lower caste attendants were killed in the system collapse. Maya met his compound eyes steadily. And how many enslaved minds were freed from centuries of torment? The elder Zirioth's colors fluctuated in patterns Maya couldn't interpret, but she sensed the emotional equivalent of discomfort. The Archon has decreed you will face final judgment before the full Galactic Council, Krelfax continued. You will undergo the trial of minds, a procedure never before administered to your species. 6 hours later, Maya was led into the vast council chamber. The tiered seating held representatives from hundreds of worlds, with the Zirioth Archon presiding from the central dais. Her team was present, kept separate under guard, all except Sana, who had disappeared during the chaos following the repository infiltration. Captain Maya Rodriguez, the Archon's voice resonated through the chamber. You stand accused of sabotage, inciting rebellion, and violations of the Protectorate Agreement. These crimes typically warrant immediate execution. However, your actions present unique circumstances. The ancient being gestured toward a crystalline apparatus at the chamber center. You will undergo the trial of minds. Your neural patterns will be scanned and compared against the perfect clarity of Zirioth collective consciousness. All present will witness your true nature and understand the disorder of human thought. Maya was secured to the apparatus, neural interfaces attaching to her temples. She didn't resist. She had been preparing for this moment since her capture, using meditation techniques Dr. Okafor had taught her. What the Zirioth couldn't understand through their hierarchical framework, was that Maya's team had anticipated this possibility. The human delegation hadn't been randomly selected. Each possessed specialized knowledge. But more importantly, they had spent months before the mission developing a shared mental model, a collaborative framework fundamentally different from hierarchical thought. As the apparatus activated, Maya didn't fight the scan. Instead, she projected the collaborative model, visualizing the interconnected network of trust and mutual respect that formed the foundation of human cooperation. The chamber systems, designed to display her thoughts to the assembled council, suddenly flared with unexpected energy. The psychic feedback cascaded through the neural interfaces, temporarily linking the minds of all present. For a brief, searing moment, every being in the chamber experienced life from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Aristocrats felt the crushing despair of lower castes. Warriors understood the frustrated brilliance of thinkers whose ideas were suppressed. Servant species experienced the hollow justifications of their masters. And all of them, for just a moment, grasped the human capacity for lateral thinking, for empathy that crossed boundaries, for leadership that empowered rather than dominated. The system overloaded in a shower of crystalline fragments. Maya collapsed unconscious on the chamber floor. Around her, the rigid order of the council had dissolved into chaos. Some beings were catatonic from the shock of multiple perspectives. Others were experiencing emotion for the first time in lives governed by rigid conditioning. The Zirioth Archon, ancient and powerful, stood trembling at the center of the chamber. For the first time in 9 centuries of life, the leader of the most powerful empire in the galaxy felt something new. Doubt. Emergency suspension of all council activities, the Archon commanded, voice lacking its usual resonance. Return all delegations to their quarters for contemplation. But it was too late. As Maya was carried away by her team, granted temporary relief from custody in the confusion, the revolution of minds had already begun. Throughout the chamber, beings of different species and castes were speaking directly to one another, ignoring hierarchical protocols. Ideas were flowing freely across boundaries established millennia ago. In the shadows of the upper tier, Sana Patel deactivated her modified communications device with a satisfied smile. The psychic amplification had worked perfectly, and the signal had been broadcast far beyond the council chamber to every communications node in the capital. Chaos engulfed Ziriath Prime as ancient hierarchies crumbled. Maya regained consciousness in a makeshift medical facility, surrounded by her team and a surprising array of alien allies. Tic-Tac hovered nearby, antennae twitching with nervous energy, while several warrior caste Ziriath stood guard at the entrance. "How long was I out?" Maya asked, throat dry from the psychic feedback. 36 hours, Dr. Okafor replied, scanning her neural activity. "And you've missed quite the revolution." Sana stepped forward, uncharacteristically animated. The psychic amplification worked beyond our projections. The broadcast reached 87% of the capital's communication nodes. What was meant to be your execution has become the spark that ignited everything. Maya struggled to sit up, wincing at the neural interface burns on her temples. Through the viewport, she could see multiple levels of the city in various states of upheaval. Some platforms had been deliberately lowered to create connections between previously separated castes. Fires burned in the governmental district. "Your neural architecture is unique," Tic-Tac explained, mandibles clicking with excitement. "Humans possess both specialization and cross-domain thinking capabilities, something engineered out of most galactic species centuries ago." The Ziriath didn't just control through technology, Wei added grimly. They genetically modified subject species to eliminate neural pathways that enabled questioning hierarchical structures. "But they couldn't anticipate humans," Farah continued. "Our brains evolved naturally to form flexible networks. When the trial apparatus connected you to the collective consciousness, it effectively rewired thousands of minds simultaneously." Their planning session was interrupted by the facility's security system. A priority alert showed the Ziriath battle fleet mobilizing. The Imperium was deploying its planet killer vessels to crush the uprising. "They're following standard counterinsurgency protocol," one of the warrior caste defectors explained, exoskeleton flushing with concern. "Identify central leadership, eliminate it, then suppress remaining resistance through overwhelming force. Then we give them no center to target," Maya decided. Over the next 6 hours, Maya implemented a strategy unlike anything in galactic military history, a completely decentralized resistance with no command structure to attack. Using the communications network Sana had established, they taught their diverse coalition to operate in autonomous cells that could function without hierarchical orders, adapting to conditions independently. When the first Ziriath enforcers descended on what they believed was a resistance stronghold, they found an empty building. When they targeted communication hubs, the network had already shifted to alternative channels. Each attempt to crush the uprising using traditional methods only spread it further as more species joined the collaborative movement. In the Imperial Strategic Command Center, the chief military strategist, a being genetically engineered for warfare over 30 generations, experienced the first defeat of his 200-year career. His neural architecture, optimized for hierarchical battlefield control, simply couldn't process the seemingly random yet perfectly coordinated resistance movements. "This defies all strategic doctrine," he hissed to his subordinates, compound eyes shifting between tactical displays. "They fight like a dispersed consciousness, not an army." Across the capital, then spreading to orbital facilities, and finally to other worlds through quantum communications, the revolution advanced not through overwhelming force, but through resilience and adaptation. Each time Imperial forces developed a countermeasure, The resistance had already evolved. Maya stood in their new headquarters, a mobile platform constantly shifting location, surrounded by a coalition of species that had never before collaborated as equals. The Phloxians provided technical expertise, developing communication systems that worked across biologically diverse needs. Warrior caste Zerioth defectors offered tactical knowledge of Imperial vulnerabilities. Even members of traditionally neutral species had joined, contributing unique perspectives to their collective strategy. The Emperor has requested direct communication, Sana announced, interrupting Maya's planning session. The holographic image of the Zerioth Emperor materialized, an ancient being whose exoskeleton had faded to translucent white with age. For the first time in recorded history, the supreme ruler of the Zerioth Imperium addressed a non-aristocratic gathering directly. "Your rebellion cannot succeed," the Emperor stated, voice eerily calm. "You have forced my hand toward a solution I had hoped to avoid." The tactical display flashed with a priority alert. A specialized vessel had departed the Emperor's sanctuary moon, heading not toward the capital, but toward a jump point aligned with Earth's coordinates. "We have launched a final measure," the Emperor continued. "A bioweapon specifically designed to reset neural patterns to their appropriate hierarchical templates. Your homeworld will be the first to receive this." Correction. As the transmission ended, Maya's blood ran cold. The rebellion might be succeeding here, but they had just triggered a desperate gambit that threatened humanity's very consciousness. "How fast is that ship?" she demanded. "Faster than anything we can deploy to intercept it," the warrior caste defector replied grimly. "The bioweapon will reach Earth in less than 72 hours. The bioweapon never reached Earth. 72 hours of feverish activity culminated in an unprecedented sight. A coalition fleet of former servant species piloting repurposed Zerioth vessels, intercepting the bioweapon at the final jump point. The operation hadn't come from Maya's team. It had emerged spontaneously from a dozen resistance cells coordinating without central command. Exemplifying the very collaborative consciousness the Zerioth had tried to destroy. News of the interception spread through quantum channels to neutral worlds that had been hesitant to choose sides. The Emperor's willingness to deploy such a weapon against an entire species proved the final evidence needed to sway them to the revolutionary cause. "We've received communications from 17 previously neutral systems," Sana reported, her console blinking with incoming transmissions. "They're withdrawing from Imperium treaties and requesting observer status in our coalition." Maya nodded, surveying the command center that had once been the Archon's private sanctum. In just 2 weeks, the power structure of a 12,000-year-old empire had been fundamentally altered, not through superior firepower or resources, but through a radical shift in how beings related to one another. "The Emperor has requested terms," Wei announced, entering with a delegation of former aristocrats whose exoskeletons now displayed subdued colors of humility rather than domination. "Not terms," Maya corrected. "Dialogue. We don't seek to replace one hierarchy with another." The meeting was arranged in the neutral chamber, a diplomatic space where atmospheric conditions could be adjusted to accommodate any species without advantage. The Zerioth Emperor arrived without the traditional entourage, ancient and diminished without the trappings of imperial power. 12 millennia of order, the Emperor said, compound eyes fixed on Maya. Replaced by chaos in a matter of days. "Not chaos," Maya replied. "Collaboration. Different, yes, but potentially stronger than what came before." The Emperor's exoskeleton shifted to a color Maya had never observed. A deep iridescent violet that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "You cannot understand the burden I have carried. The knowledge of what preceded our dominion. The wars that nearly extinguished all sentient life. The suffering that prompted our ancestors to implement genetic controls." "Then show me," Maya said. The Emperor's compound eyes widened. "You would risk another neural connection after what the trial apparatus did to you. This time by choice, with mutual consent." What happened next was unprecedented in galactic history. a direct neural interface between human and Zerioth consciousness, observed by representatives of 100 worlds. Maya experienced 12,000 years of history from the perspective of those who had shaped it. The devastating wars that had preceded the Imperium's rise, the genuine belief that hierarchy was necessary for survival, and the slow corruption of noble intentions into tyranny. The Emperor, in turn, experienced human history, our countless failures and brutal conflicts, but also our relentless capacity for growth, for questioning our worst impulses, for building connections across differences. They emerged from the connection transformed. Maya understood the fears that had shaped the Imperium, while the Emperor grasped something previously inconceivable, that stability need not require dominance. "I abdicate," the Emperor announced to the stunned assembly. "The imperial structure is dissolved. In its place, I call for a new galactic covenant based on principles of collaborative governance." 6 months later, the inaugural session of the Galactic Cooperative assembled in what had once been the hierarchical council chamber. The physical space had been redesigned, no more tiered seating, but a circular arrangement where representatives of all species and castes could engage as equals. The structure was not a flattened hierarchy, but a dynamic network with rotating responsibilities based on capability rather than birthright. Maya, offered permanent leadership, declined. "Earth needs to understand what we've discovered here before taking a central role," she explained. "We have our own hierarchies to dismantle." As their ship departed for home, Maya stood at the viewport with her team, watching Zerioth Prime recede into the distance. The former capital world was being transformed. The floating platforms that had physically manifested case divisions were being reconfigured into an interconnected network. On the planet's surface, the former Emperor, now simply Scholar Thax, worked alongside Tic-Tac and representatives of various species to redesign not just governance, but the very architecture of their society. The physical structures of hierarchy were literally being dismantled. "Do you think it will last?" Wei asked, standing beside her at the viewport. Maya watched the shimmer of quantum communications connecting the planet to thousands of worlds across the galaxy, ideas flowing freely where once only commands had traveled. "Not without challenges," she admitted, "but they have something now they never had before." "What's that?" Farah asked. Maya smiled as Earth appeared on their navigational display, their home still unaware of how profoundly the galaxy had changed. "The ability to see themselves in others," she said, "to collaborate across boundaries, to lead by empowering rather than commanding." She turned to her team, not subordinates but partners whose diverse strengths had overcome an empire. In the end, that was always humanity's greatest power.